There goes a fly ball towards left field. Going back fast is Kennedy. Kennedy gets there, and he takes it. And the Cleveland Indians are the world champions of 1948. And
this is Cleveland's Team, a baseball history podcast. A regular look back at professional baseball in Cleveland from 1901 and beyond. Now, here's your host, Guardians team historian, Jeremy Fedor.
There's my clap. And so we're just going to got a half hour, 45 minutes, going to just kind of run through your Cleveland career. And I guess I wanted to start off at the beginning because, you weren't actually drafted by Cleveland. You were a 7th round pick in the 1979 draft out of Ventura College. Was that a surprise to you that, the Braves were looking at you, or?
Well, I knew one of the scouts. He was a Southern California guy, and I talked to him before, so he recommended me to, he was kind of a bird dog scout, recommended me to one of their bigger scouts, and one thing led to another there. But, no, it all worked out good. And
you came up somewhat fast as a 21-year-old. You got your start with Atlanta, and then, what was... just towards the end of the year, you got called up, or? Well,
I had gone home already. I played Double-A, 1 year at Double-A, and I was already home. Well, no, I shouldn't say I played 1 year at Double-A. I played a half a season of rookie ball, then a full season of A ball, then Double-A. Went home, and I was helping my dad move, and one of the front office people called, and I didn't answer it. I thought, they want me to go to winter ball. I don't want to go to winter ball. So I ended up calling back, and he says, where you been? I'm trying to get a hold of you. I said, well, been kind of busy here helping my dad move. He said, hey, we need you on the next flight to Atlanta. So that's pretty cool.
Did your parents join you on the flight?
No, they didn't. No, I went by myself. Walked in the clubhouse by myself. Here's all these guys that, we were watching play during the season. That's when I think that's when Bob Horner was there. All the Chambliss, they had a bunch of pretty well-known guys at that time. Dale Murphy as well, Ramirez at short, Pocoroba. Good group. And then a couple young guys that got called up.
I had to talk to Chris actually earlier in the year. What a great guy. Great stories. And,
Chris?
Yeah, Chambliss.
Oh, yeah, he is a super guy. He hit one of the, and I still tell him to this day when I see him, I said, that home run you hit, we were in San Francisco, and you know how windy it gets.
Yeah.
He hit one to right center in the upper deck out there. It's like, my goodness. He said, yeah, I think that's the longest one I've ever hit.
Now, you walk into a clubhouse after being home. Do you recall, is it all blur, or what's that?
Oh, yeah, I was like, God, my heart! I didn't know what to do. It's like a whole new situation. New coaches, didn't know what the schedules were. It's like, and then Hrabowski and Gene Garber kind of took me under their wing. Garber said, "Hey, you come with me. Come stay with me and get out of the hotel." So I went over to his house and stayed there. Kind of surprised though. I opened his refrigerator. I was going to get something to eat. There's nothing but beer in the refrigerator. Say, hey, where do you eat at around here?
So you have 15 games total with the Braves, and then traded to Cleveland. And the trade seemed weird. I was going through the old newspapers, and it was more like a wink and a nudge that Brook Jacoby is going to be part of this trade. It happened in the middle of the year, but you weren't actually traded until October 21st. But August 28th was when the trade was kind of announced, but wasn't completed until October. Do you remember much about that, or just saying, "Oh, Cleveland"?
Yeah, I remember we had Butler was in that trade. Myself, Rick Bahena, and Rick had gone over.
Yeah.
Rick had gone over to Cleveland first. Brett and I were still in Atlanta. Of course, I was called up. I was in a meeting or something, and they said, we can't say who it is that got traded. And I was kind of hoping, it was me because, they had Bob Horner playing third base, and he wasn't going anywhere. So Yeah, I found out that off season that I was getting traded, so it was good.
Had you had any, I mean, most guys, it's an opportunity, right? That's the big thing. But Cleveland in the 80s, I guess, probably didn't have the world's greatest reputation. I'm a native, so I feel like I can make fun of Cleveland and get away with it. But, you're going to a stadium that's on its last legs, that's a cave. Everyone mentions how much of a cavern that was. Had you ever been to Cleveland? Had you?
Never been to Cleveland, didn't really know much about them. I think we had an all-star game in Columbus and played against Cleveland when I was in AAA. I was with Richmond at the time, and we played against Cleveland. And so, Johnny Gorel was the third base coach. I talked to him a little bit, but I didn't think anything of it. And, next thing I know, I got traded.
And do you remember coming to Cleveland, what your thoughts were, walking to that clubhouse, that stadium, and a whole new ball game?
Yeah, well, our spring training course was down in Tucson, so that was the first kind of get acclimated, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier breaking camp with a club than it is getting traded in the middle of the season. I mean, at least in my experience, it was. So yeah, we get here, and my wife and I were driving down to the stadium. We had a workout or we had something going on, and the lake was frozen. I'll never forget that. I said, oh my God, because I lived in California, and I'd never seen anything like that. Lake Erie's frozen. So I knew it was going to be a cold couple months there to start the year.
And playing in that stadium, because it was mixed use, they used it for football. Did you ever come across situations where you're looking at the field going, what the hell is this? Or?
Yeah, I was just really thankful and happy that I got the opportunity to play. I would have played on any kind of field, it wouldn't have mattered. But at the same time, guys are going, hey, this is the big leagues, this shouldn't be like this. Early in the year, if they ever had to transplant any kind of sod, it wasn't going to take. And there are times when I know there were other pitchers coming off the mound to field a ground ball, and that turf would just give way. During the football season, of course, that was later in the year, that was more straight up the middle, short second out to center. And if they had rain, if they had gotten a rain game, it got pretty beat up out there. And there was a lot of sand. They put sand and kind of spray painted the sand. And you hit something out there and it just stopped. So it was a little different. I'm kind of glad to see that they don't share stadiums anymore.
And on that 84 team, were there guys you kind of connected with right away, or guys you knew?
Well, I knew Butler coming over. Tabler was, he became a good friend. I just ran into Andre Thornton this morning at the airport. He was kind of the captain, kind of go-to guy. There are a bunch of good guys on that team, I thought.
And you started off manager with, and you actually only had a few managers considering, the way the team was, never really getting above a fourth one year. But Pat Corrales, how was he as a manager?
He was tough. He liked to condition all of us. And I remember after we got beat, we got embarrassed, I think, one game in spring, and he told Bobby Bonds, hey, run these guys till it gets dark. That's, oh my God. But he was tough. If you played the game hard, played the game right, you didn't have any problems with him.
And again, another thing about the old stadium that I find fascinating is guys mention, you'll play opening day and there's 60,000 fans, and the next day there might be 3,000. I mean, what were your experiences like with that? Any good stories? Especially being at edge or on third or first, you probably hear people talking.
When you have a lot of people, you don't hear them talking. When you have 3,000, you hear them all talking, and maybe it's at you too. Who knows? It depends. But yeah, when that stadium was full, the big one. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look around, there are people everywhere. Just a great atmosphere, and we all knew that if we ever did win, that it could be like this every game, because they came out. Just we didn't ever really put it together.
Was that frustrating? I mean, obviously, I guess it would be, but just not being able to climb the ranks and season after season. I mean, it was just, unfortunately, the 80s in Cleveland aren't, I don't want to say fondly, because a lot of people recall the names very well. It's just that was, Browns were winning, and you guys were kind of just figuring out, are they even going to stay in Cleveland? Was that?
Well, the ownership thing was that was a big issue. I guess they didn't want to commit any money to any free agents or whatever they would do, or contracts to players. Really, it was frustrating. More so when you go home in the winter and you're watching it on TV. When you're out there, grinding every day playing. It's a little different than when you're sitting at home and you look back and go, God, we weren't that good. We had some good young players. I remember one year I think we were right around first place in August, or a game or two out, and we ended up no chance at the end of the year. But that was the time we needed some pitching help at that point, and we didn't get any. So that was kind of frustrating.
And then 84, hit your first home run, April 8th, 1984. Do you remember who it was against?
Yeah, Kansas City. I think it was in Kansas City, and I'm not sure. Buddy Black, that's right. Yeah, left-hander. Yeah, teammate too, here in Cleveland. Yeah.
Do you have that ball, or it's not a thing?
I do.
Okay.
I think I do still, yeah. First homer.
And then I was able to pull actually from here. So we have, this was in 1986. Oh no, actually it was 86. Yeah, you had a two homer game. Do you remember much about some of these games and playing?
Oh, this was at home.
Yeah.
Brook Jacoby as he hits his second homer of the game, his seventh on
Well,
season.
those fences didn't last long because they moved them back a couple years later.
2 home runs in one game, and the Cleveland Indians are having a ball in Municipal Stadium today.
What was it like to hit at that ballpark too? I mean, did it feel like you were kind of comparatively to other ballparks? I mean,
No, it was similar to all the other ones. I thought till they moved the fences back, it was like, my goodness. But yeah, it was home. I mean, that was our home, and to a lot of us, we got our start in Cleveland.
Now, that being home, we were talking before we started hitting record, playing in Fenway, playing in Detroit's stadium, and what were those ballparks like? And I mean, growing up, if you were a fan of baseball, is it surreal to be in those historic places?
Yeah, it's really kind of neat to play in those stadiums. The facilities are not real good. I mean, they're by any means conducive for September baseball when you have all the call-ups and those. I mean, everything is so small and condensed. The clubhouse, Boston didn't even have a batting cage for a while. Then they put one in center. Then they moved. The center was shared, and then they moved one over by the home dugout, which they currently have now. But everything's real small because they just didn't have the space. And but what a neat Fenway, Wrigley, Detroit. Detroit was another one of those that if you come running in off the field, you could hit your head on the top of wasn't conducive to a big tall guy. But they were, compared to now, everything is just gigantic. I mean, the facilities they have now are like health spas in there,
And as you're going through those early years, was there anyone, when you stepped in the batter's box and you saw who was on the mound, that was almost like a surreal moment? Some guys that you just grew up watching or knew about?
Yeah, I mean, like Nolan Ryan, he was a big name. I remember facing Frank Tanana, but that was after he got hurt. I saw him when I was in high school, when he was with the Angels. He and Nolan, I think, were on the same team then. He threw really hard. And then I faced him later, and then he was starting to throw a bunch of breaking stuff. He didn't have the velocity anymore. But same with Tommy John, you know, is another one of those big name guys. And Necros, Phil was in Atlanta when I got called up, and then I played with him in Cleveland, and I faced him as well. So, you know, you don't forget those guys.
And during your time too, were you ever, I forget who I was talking to, but mentioned running like into Joe DiMaggio in an elevator. Did you get a chance to meet some of the older guys that maybe were hanging around?
Well, with Bob Feller, of course. Bob was a staple at spring training every year. He would talk to anybody. He'd spend his time with anybody. I remember I'd go to the jacuzzi a lot at night, and he'd be in there. We'd just sit and talk baseball. And I forget how old he was at that time, but he was out there throwing the ball around. Just, you could tell he just still loved baseball, genuinely loved it.
And throughout your career, I mean, looking at your numbers, you were pretty good at keeping your strikeouts somewhat down now comparatively today. I mean, it seems like it's a bygone era of that. Except for, and we have Stephen Kwan, who's, I guess, comparable in terms of not striking out a lot. But any, do you see any reason you were able to do that, or just?
Well, I thought they were too high, to be honest with you. It was over 100 a couple of years, I believe. The best year I had was when my strikeouts were down and my on-base percentage was up and the walks were higher. I couldn't put my finger on what flipped from one year to the next, why it did that, because it was pretty drastic one year to the next, where the walks and strikeouts, I think, were real close. But nobody likes striking out. I mean, now it's just, if you hit homers and strike out, it's kind of, that's what he is.
And then just in terms of durability, I mean, too, you were playing 161 and 85, 158 and 86. Anything just you attribute that to? I mean,
I just walk in and saw my name in the lineup and let's go. Now they get days off marked on the calendar. I mean, here's your schedule. You're going to play here. You're going to have this day off, that day off. And back then, you played unless your knee was hanging off, or you played. I mean, it's just the way it was. The guys would get on you. They don't do that anymore. I mean, I've been coaching. I coached for 11 years, so I've seen it. They don't really get on guys anymore.
Now, you were, fortunate enough, or I don't know if fortunate's the right word, but you got to play in 2 All-Star games, and that's a lot more than a lot of people can say. Do you remember, again, getting that information from your manager, or how did that work, and what was it like to play in 2 All-Star games?
Yeah, I remember that. I got called into the office and said, hey, they're going to take you to the All-Star game. I don't know if Brett got hurt one year. Somebody got hurt. So, great. That was I believe that was in Houston, the first one. And, I think I took my father-in-law down to it. And we had a good time, my wife and kids, and just all the pre-game stuff, and then, then the game. But it's one of those things, it's like World Series game, because you make one mistake, it costs the game. It's on TV everywhere, the media, and there's a lot. It's pretty intense. Pretty intense.
And then the other one was at Wrigley, which, I mean, that would have been the only time you really played at Wrigley.
That was. Yeah, it was the only time. Again, small clubhouse, a lot of guys, no really batting cage, nothing to do there, just getting everybody's way. And once the game started, then it was fine. But yeah, they were both memorable.
And I was also able to pull. You had a game where you had 3 home runs. Do you remember much about that game? We have the.
I think it was against the White Sox.
That's it down the left field line, hit deep into the corner. This ball is gone. Home run for Jacoby.
Is it the White? Yeah, the White Sox.
Right center field. That one as well.
The deep center field.
No, sir. It's gone. Brook Jacoby is in his second home run of the night. There's another one. Kenny Williams back to the warning track to the wall. This ball is gone.
It's not too many of those in franchise history in terms of 3 home run games. Hosey just had one the other day, but I mean, do you recall that, or is that?
I remember that. Yeah, that's one of those games that I don't think you ever really forget. I think it was Dobson pitching, I believe. Could be wrong. I think we might have lost the game, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what kind of tarnished it a little bit. But
you wore number 26. Was there a reason for that, or it's just what the clubhouse gave you and you stuck with it?
well, I did wear 14 coming in, and then Julio Franco had that number, so he gave me 26. I think I had a choice. Couple choices. I said 26.
And your career as a hitting coach, when you were playing, were you watching guys hit, and any guys from those teams really stick out to you? I mean, Julio was something else, and that guy he might still be playing. I don't know.
Yeah, when I was a player in the minor leagues, we would. Back then, there was a player named Gerald Perry who was with Atlanta, left-handed hitting first baseman. He and I would always get to the park early and go work on things, talk about hitting. He ended up being a big league hitting coach too for quite a few years. But yeah, we talked a lot, always kind of watched other guys. You can't always change what you do because people are built different and whatnot, but just the talking part. What are you thinking? What are you looking for? And to be honest with you, my first year here in '84, Mike Hargrove and I rode into the ballpark every day, and he gave me the scouting report on the pitcher. He likes to do this, that. He likes to get ahead with this. He likes to try to finish off with this, and that was really helpful because we didn't have any meetings like they do now and go over pitching staffs. It was kind of, you either had to write it down or you had to remember what these guys threw. Now everything's laid out for them. They've got computers to watch every pitch they throw to them, and it's kind of nice.
Is that wild to think about the draft? I mean, that's a drastic change from 1984 to soon to be 2024. Like, what is accessible to a hitter? Is it? I mean, do you ever worry that it's almost too much? Where's the finding a balance, or?
Well, I think some guys can handle it, some guys can't. I mean, you start giving a guy information that's basically a see it and hit it kind of guy, that now you start breaking things down and getting technical with him. You could really get him into thinking too much at the plate, or thinking about mechanics at the plate when you're trying to see the ball and hit it. And yeah, I mean, it's as a coach, you got to kind of pick your guys, pick your spots with not too much information. But I think all the analytics, I mean, I think it's outstanding for scouting. What are you trying to bring into your organization? Do these guys fit into these analytic type of modes? But I don't know that it's necessarily for everybody. I mean, if I'm hitting the ball on the ground too much and I don't run, I know I got to get the ball up in the air. You know, somebody shouldn't have to tell me that. Or if I'm hitting it in the air too much, too high, I got to flatten out my swing a little bit. It's kind of common sense, but no, they've got. And again, I think for building a ball club and having that kind of information and what kind of hitters you're looking for in the draft, I think it's very valuable. I remember talking to Scott Hatterberg when he was over in was coaching with Cincinnati at the time, and he was a big on base guy, and on base was huge at that at that time. Scotty was a great on base guy, but he didn't run. So he kind of clogged the bases a little bit. But anyway, I asked him, I said, hey, what was it that you did in the minor leagues, or what did they tell you? How did they work you into being this guy? He said, I was always that guy. So it didn't change. And they didn't make him an on-base machine. It's kind of how they drafted and who they drafted to make the whole club an on-base machine,
Right.
So.
1988, Terry Francona's on the club. What was it? That whole club in general. What was Tito like then? And again, being on a team that had, I talked to John Farrell. I know Ron Washington was on that team. A lot of these guys that ended up having great post-playing careers. Is that? I'm sure you've been asked that question, but.
I saw Tito in the minor leagues. He was with Montreal, and I think he had gotten hurt, and he was working his way back to the big leagues. So he was in, I think it was Knoxville or Memphis. That was their AA team, and he was working his way back. And this guy could hit. He could flat hit. And prior to his injury, I guess he could really run too. So he was a heck of a ball player. But when we got him, he was still a hitter. He still hit, and he just, I think it was his knees that gave him the problem. And
then with that '88 season, and Scott Bales mentioned this too, and they were filming the movie Major League, and during it was a game in July against Seattle, and Bobby D talks about it too. They had to call timeout or whatever in between innings and have a flyover. And Bales mentioned that they all went to the bullpen and kind of like waved to the camera. Do you remember those guys in town, Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, or B, just dealing with that situation? I can't imagine it'd be possible nowadays, but.
Yeah, I know that was probably the only time they filmed here at this stadium. The rest was up in Milwaukee. But we had a pretty big crowd. And they told us prior to the game, hey, the filming's going on this inning. You got to stay in the dugout. Da. Yeah, Charlie was around. It was kind of neat. And then that movie came out. Got to see it when we were here playing, actually.
What'd you think of it? Has it aged well for you too, or was it at the time it's a double-edged sword where you kind of poke fun, but also it's a happy ending?
Oh, it was a good movie. I think guys liked it. I don't think anybody took it personally that it was a dig or anything like that, but it was kind of neat to watch.
I asked Bales if he wanted to wear number 99 and cut his hair like that, but he wasn't. Which actually was surprising. It took that long until I think James Karinchak wore 99 to have a reliever that did that in Cleveland. But nevertheless, yeah, you mentioned the Fences moved back in '91. That's not anything they would have consulted you guys on, right? It was just
not at all. It was just came out in a memo that Fences were this, that, and it's like, wow. I think they were trying to help our pitching staff for one, and also maybe make it pitching and defense wins games, make it where maybe more free agent pitching would come our way. But my God, it took balls that used to go out or hitting off the fence or getting caught,
And you ended up getting traded in mid-90, was it 91, you get traded to Oakland. Team was kind of going in a different direction. The newspaper mentioned too, Cleveland wasn't paying anyone, trying to get younger. You kind of saw that writing on the wall. Was it cool to go back to California for you? I mean, Oakland was a better team, I think, at the time than Cleveland, or was it kind of just you'd been here for so long, probably a tough adjustment? Or
Yeah, it was tough getting traded. I mean, of course, but into daily routine here. People knew a lot of people, but yeah, wasn't far from home. The weather was, you could stay strong in that kind of cool weather out there. And they were, they had won. And I remember coming to the ballpark and then, what is a different attitude here? That these guys expected to win when they came to the park. Expected to win every day, and when they didn't, they were upset. So it was a good chemistry over there, and La Russa had created that with that ball club, and they had some talent. Didn't happen that year. I think the Twins did it all that year with a good club as well. But yeah, it was fun having to play for something in the later in the season.
And you end up back in Cleveland the next year. Was it with the understanding that, hey, we got this kid at third base that's gonna, you're gonna kind of back him up a little bit?
Yeah, I had no problem. I had moved to first. I played a little first as well, third, first. Always out to help the younger guys. I think it was Tommy for a while, and then maybe Bayarga for a while, and then I ended up playing over there again.
And could you see? I mean, I guess hindsight's 2020, but I mean that '92 team starts forming that core of what goes on. You have Kenny, Carlos, Nagy, Sandy, Sereno, Bell, and Tommy all on that team. Could you tell there was something special? I mean, Tommy was not the Tommy we later saw, but those guys were all hitting.
No, it was the Lofton trade was huge. I think Taubensee went in to Houston for Kenny Lofton, and this guy would get on. It was a given. He would steal second. The number 2 hitter, I don't know if it was Fermin at the time, would hit behind him, get him to third, and the next guy sack fly. I mean, if he got on, it was almost like, well, it's 1-0. It was like clockwork. I'd never seen anything like it. But then Carlos started switch hitting. Really was a little spark plug. Sandy was the pro, consummate pro. Yeah, there were a lot of young, good, talented kids, very athletic. Bell was a competitor like nobody's business. It was a lot of fun to be around that.
Was it not surprising to see Tommy become one of the all-time greatest home run hitters? I mean, could you tell from a young start, or was he just another rookie?
Well, I think when he was first got called up, he was like everybody else. He was a little gun shy, and until you start feeling your level of comfort at the big leagues, then that's when things really start happening for you. And everybody's level of comfort comes at a different time. But you talk to the coaches that had him, said this kid gonna be legit power guy. He sure was.
And for you too, coming back to that team, Grover was managing. Was that kind of a full circle teammate to manager? I mean, I'm sure it didn't make you feel young by any means either to have a guy you played with now managing a team. And
well, I was the old guy on that team, but no, Grover was fun to play for. He's been through it all with Cleveland. He knew what it was all about, and he paid his dues in the minor leagues, came up, and he's our manager. Did well.
Then your career in Cleveland, free agent. That's kind of the end of your time in Cleveland, but you were fortunately a member of the top 100 players. And what do you remember? I mean, that's pretty wild to be in the same photo with some of these all-time Cleveland greats. I mean,
Yeah, that's kind of very humbling. But maybe I was number 99 or 100. Who knows? But yeah, I'm proud to say that I was on that.
Remember any stories talking to any of those guys from that day, or just more?
I've seen Herb Score was our radio guy. Max saw Max at the fantasy camps, and just good old hardball players. They played the game right, and played every day and whatnot. Good group.
Do you think you would have liked hitting in this ballpark more than Municipal?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember they were just building this park at the end of my career. It was a hole in the ground for a while. Yeah, a little higher wall and left. Maybe not more doubles for me. Ball seems to carry a little bit to right center too here, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was I used to go that way a lot. It was it is what it was, and that was our home.
And I guess just to kind of summarize it, you had a heck of a career here in Cleveland, and quite a few years. Anything that we didn't cover that sticks out, or what Cleveland meant to you, for a guy that got some time in the league and had some fun?
Well, it was a dream come true for a kid that probably didn't have all the talent in the world, but worked at it, and enjoyed every minute of my time here in Cleveland.
Well, we can stop there because I think Nate's probably gonna come pick you up. I did pull. You had 6 walk-offs, and I'm always fascinated by walk-off hits. Do you recall any of your walk-off?
I really
moments?
don't. I don't.
That was all those. None of our home runs. A lot of singles. One was I think an error.
Huh. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, were there. I don't think there were any home runs, were there?
One was the 17th inning. You had a heck of a week there against the Angels, I think it was.
Angels were the California team. I used to want to.
I
enjoyed playing them.
Would you go into were there series you'd go into, like this team had slighted me here, or this guy?
No, not at all. It just so happened that every time we went to Anaheim, I had a bunch of tickets and whatnot, and liked playing there because the weather was really good. But no, it wasn't that good. I couldn't foresee that.
All right, well, yeah, that was great. I appreciate you
Sure.
stopping by. And like I said, you ever gonna do the mustache again, or is that?
No, that's done. I do this little thing here.
That was cool. We have a few. The mustache was great. I mean, times change. I get it, but in our little. Let me see if I can pull these up. These are pretty good. Yeah.
No stash. Oh, there's one.
Let's see if I can. Yeah, that's a great stash. Those uniforms too are great with the belt. I love those. Oh, these are pixelated like that. Yeah, some of those I got there.
Denny Summers, I think. Yeah,
The stash.
the
Right
old
back.
coach.
Joe Carter again. Early '80s jersey, or actually mid '80s. Yeah. You save any of that stuff too? Or?
I have some at home.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of collectors that I've given stuff to.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated where stuff ends up because we try to save our history now, trying to get ahead of things, and we have Naquin's walk-off jersey against the Blue Jays from the inside the park. We were able to save that, and just A lot of teams are doing museums now, and that's my goal. I mean, that's my master's degree is in museum and archive stuff, and I just dabble in PR now.
So do they have one here?
Not yet. My goal
Is that you?
So we were the very first team back in 1951 to have a team Hall of Fame, and Shoeless Joe's in our Hall of Fame. If you go to the bottom part of it, you'll see him. And then 52, they had a museum back at the old ballpark, but in the 70s, when the team really kind of bottomed out, they got rid of it, and they lost a lot of like one-of-a-kind artifacts.
Oh, really? That's too bad.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Cleveland's Team, a baseball history podcast with Guardians team historian Jeremy Fedor.